Hey guys, how's it going? Marcelo here, and I'm just gonna get right into it. Again, like I have to say all the time, you saw the thumbnail, you saw the title. It's really sad when I watch a Crash video on YouTube and I can't read the comments because at least one person has to be that person, and it doesn't even have to be about Crash. Like hate, like animosity towards these two games. I have them right here. They're not that bad. Can you see? Okay, they're not that bad. They're okay games at best. Now, the bar was set really high with Crash back in the 90s. I'm not gonna get into a tangent, but this is just my little backstory of, justifying my thoughts, setting up the mood for the video, if you will. So, yeah, to say that there's an okay Crash game, in my eyes, is a little weird because the Crash series did very well, to the point where he was competing with Mario and Sonic back in the 90s for like most known mascot, I guess, successful mascot, if you will. And I don't know, like, to say that they're okay is pretty sad, in the first place, but the games are not pieces of shit. They're not god-awful puke or whatever people say about these games. Of course, they can always be over-exaggerated. They could just be trolls, or they could just be, I hate using this term so much, but Naughty Dog fanboys. Fanboys is the term I hate using. But I'm one of the more optimistic Crash fans, because I'm a big-ass fan of the series, and I'm just that, a big-ass fan of the series as a whole. There are, of course, as any franchise would have, ups and downs, and I think one of the bigger downs, and I think it's also unanimously said, that Crash Boom Bang for the DS is not a good game. Like, I can really say that is not a good game. I do not, as a Crash fan, as a DS player, whatever, as a game, don't play Crash Boom Bang. It's just a really confusing, bad Mario Party ripoff. But that's besides the point. Back to these two games. So, they're not all that bad. But I do understand where the attacks come from the fans onto these games. If they just wouldn't do it with such animosity, and I'm going to say this right now also, let's talk about these games. If anyone decides to comment on this video, let's talk about the games. Let's discuss these games in a mature, analytical context. If I get one person saying, you're fucking wrong, I hate you, you can go suck a dick, the games are still shit in my opinion, comments are leaving. I'm turning off the comments of this video if anything like that happens. So, with that warning out of the way, let's just kind of, not so much as analyze, but let's just discuss, in a discussion video, why people, I want to understand why people hate these games. And again, like, people hate these games. I guess I can start off by, clarifying for those who just don't follow, don't want to, don't care to follow how other people think of these kinds of games. Just to clarify here, my friend Weston has said before that, like, this is really comparable to what are called Gen 1ers for Pokemon, which are fans of Pokemon that only like Generation 1 and pretty much think everything else after is not good, So with that kind of, with that mindset, with the Crash series, a lot of these people are in fact people that only like and only say that only the Naughty Dog Crash games are the only good thing of the entire franchise, and then everything else after it, besides like the main exception is Twin Sanity, is like just ugh, like people don't like it. I have to disagree. Wrath of Cortex is also unanimously said as like no one likes it. It's a big ass warp ripoff according to people. No one really talks much about the Game Boy games. People don't really like crossover, you know, with Crash and Spyro. And then most of the attacks here are about these games. Now, with that out of the way, let's really just talk about these two games. Starting off with the gameplay, because right there's three big points here that I want to go over. Three big aspects as to why people don't like this game. You know, things that I think people don't like, and that all collectively just means that they don't like this game because of these points. So, starting off with the gameplay, these two games are beat-em-up games. Of course, they're still platforming if you've played these games and you know about them. Even without prior, you know, experience with the other Crash games, if you just kind of saw this one or these ones and were like, oh, I'm going to play these games because they look interesting, and you've never really even heard of Crash. The entire franchise before these games never really had beat-em-up elements. It was strictly platforming. So you still have platforming, but you've got beat-em-up elements because now they've given Crash some Mario 64-esque, you know, combat moves. But the thing I like about how they do, these Crash games do their combat, more so how I favor this way of doing combat more than like Mario 64, for example, is that with Mario 64 it's only just your punch kick, and you can slide into enemies and jump on them, you know, classic Mario style, and that's just kind of it. But with Crash, you can do your classic spin attack, you can do the like 4 to 5, you know, standard 4 to 5, you know, punching, kicking combo. I really like in Crash the Titans, one of the abilities you unlock is spinning around, like breakdancing on Crash. Crash stands on his head and like spins around and kicks all the enemies around his, like, you know, radius. So that's really cool. And then there's like, you can spin into enemies from like, you know, above. You can like hover down with like an alternate spin attack, I guess. And he's got an array of moves, is what I'm trying to say. And that's actually pretty cool. It's not just a punch kick or just like the spin attack, even though having just a spin attack, of course, did work for the past games because they would give you an array of abilities there as well. But they were all just kind of like, not to say that these are bad. I'm just stating, you know, I guess facts. I guess there is a little bit of comparing and contrasting here. But with your array of abilities you unlock in like the Naughty Dog Crash games and all that, they're kind of just like improvements, you know, upgrades to already existing abilities. When you unlock new combat moves in these games, or even just primarily in Crash of the Titans, it's because I'm forgetting if you actually unlock abilities, you know, more fighting moves in Mind Over Mutant, but you can unlock other ways of attacking, and that's pretty neat. So, you know, not bashing anything here, I'm just saying, like, that's actually really cool how they do it in these two games. So with the gameplay, it's not all that changed. I mean, you can, you know, hang on to walls, which couldn't really do so much in the other Crash games, but, you know, there's wall running, wall jumping, I believe, stuff like that. So it's not all that bad. It's actually kind of an upgrade. And even with, you know, they went back to Crash 2 in Mind Over Mutant, and they brought back the digging, you know, ability. And that was actually pretty neat too. You know, it didn't feel too out of the way or too random so much, but it worked. For what it was worth, it was pretty cool. So with that out of the way, let's go on to the biggest, one of the bigger of the three, I guess, elements here, which is the characters. And I guess the little sub-aspects to this one aspect, I guess you would call it, would be the designs and the personalities, because they changed a lot. And this is where a lot of the criticisms start coming from. But the designs, let's start with that, are, again, okay. A lot of these things, in my eyes, can be just labeled as okay. Two things for two characters that are not so okay are Crunch and Tiny Tiger, because they just became so bland. Not so much in terms of design, because I mean they changed Crunch's look a lot in Crash of the Titans, and then try to go back to the classic look in Mind Over Mutant. And Tiny was just there. I think he changed species of tiger, but I don't know. Like, let's just get into personalities. The designs are okay for what they're worth. They started changing, not so drastically, but were changing in fact in Crash Tag Team Racing, where I think Engine was one of the bigger ones where he just got a complete and utter palette change. He's more zombie looking now, a little more monochromatic, and Nolan North brings a whole new personality to, like, a batshit crazy personality to Engine, which he had arguably throughout the series, but not to this degree. Like, he's just downright like ADD, ADHD, all of that combined, really. But when it came to Crash the Titans, well, okay, Crunch's personality change started in Crash Tag Team Racing. He became a Mr. T parody. I don't know why, but he's now a Mr. T parody. He's basically just Mr. T. Let's just say that. So, Mr. T is in this game, in these games, and why? I don't know. Who the exact person or exact people were that said, make him Mr. T? I don't know. There's even a costume. I'm pretty sure it is, in Tag Team Racing. Pretty sure it's based off of some kind of costume from Mr. T. From I guess a film he was in or something, called Mr. Crunch, I think is what it's called. Yeah, so he's Mr. T now. With Tiny Tiger in Crash of the Titans, he became a Mike Tyson parody because of the way he talked with the lisp and everything, and the more soft-spoken voice. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. These two changes were uncalled for, honestly, unnecessary. I don't know, pretty bland. With the other personalities, though, I guess we can just flip between design and personalities, just to make it easier. I've already been doing that anyway, so let's just keep that up, I guess. Uka's design was huge because he looks literally nothing like. If they didn't even call him Uka at first, you would have no clue that was even him. That's how drastically they redesigned him. Also now voiced by John DiMaggio, who makes him sound way more different than Alex Fernandez and Clancy Brown and everyone else in the past voiced Uka. Aku Aku's was not too drastic. Greg Eagles now does his voice and gives it a little bit more of gives him some more comedic, Aku Aku's never been too comedic. He was just always the wise figure. And he's still kind of wise now, in Crash of the Titans Mind Over Mutant, but he's way more comedic now. Just everything is more comedic, and we'll get to that in a minute. So, all the redesigns, you have to get, if you're an open-minded, one of the bigger Crash fans, but are more open-minded, then it's easy to kind of, it's easier to get used to. If you're just a troll, then I can't help you. Leave this video. You don't even want to be here. So, yeah. Designs, personalities. The personalities were just weird. And, especially, again, with Crunch and Tiny Tiger. That's one thing I don't really like about these two games. And, the designs are, again, okay. Now on to the biggest, I keep saying that. They're all really big points, but the third big aspect of why I can understand that people don't like these games is, in fact, the humor. So, the humor has always been more voiceless, Looney Tunes-esque in terms of, I guess, visually. For past Crash games, I'm pretty sure Looney Tunes was. I'm not sure if it was Jason Rubin or Andy Gavin who said it, but I'm pretty sure one of them were the ones that said that Looney Tunes was one of the bigger inspirations for Crash's visual wacky humor in the Naughty Dog games. And they tried keeping it up as best as they could with, Wrath of Cortex. Twin Sanity did a more comedic. It was more cartoony, as much as Crash, as Crash is already cartoony. They went even cartoonier, I guess, with Twin Sanity. And Twin Sanity is one of the best comedic Crash games. That's comedy done alright for the most part in those games. With Titans Mind Over Mutant, and arguably this did start again as well in Crash Tag Team Racing, they went for what I call sitcom-ish humor, where, we're edgier and we're gonna talk talk about / tackle. I don't know which one to choose. We're gonna tackle more. We're gonna reference more things from like the real world. Like we're gonna do more pop culture references and make more stances like on technology and all that. And that's the main plot of Mind Over Mutant, and I don't really like that. So that is one thing I can say that I did not care for was the plot of Mind Over Mutant, because Mind Over Mutant's plot was like, oh, it's the new technological device. It's kind of like the iPhone or something, where it's like, oh, you can do all these neat things with it like text, and now with the more cartoonish, nature, make fries with it and stuff like that, and you can do all this other shit with it. Watch pay-per-view and all that. First off, pay-per-view, TiVo, I think it's not Neon Cat, I Can Has Cheeseburger. These are all real references in these last 2 Crash games. Why? Why are these references made? A lot of the enemies, when you let them just kind of babble with each other, they also reference things like that. I mean, I think it's a little more forgiving with the enemies because, like, they reference other games sometimes. And, like at one point in Crash of the Titans, they reference Mario and they reference Sonic. And those lines of dialogue are a little more random to come across, but the fact that that's how, like, it is, it's more random. Not just outright, every time you come to a certain point, they'll reference Mario, like, outright or something. With those more random instances of coming across those lines of dialogue, like, that's pretty funny. Those references done right for the most part. But when you reference outright TiVo, like, why does Coco reference TiVo? How does she know what TiVo is? Why does Embryo know who the inventor of Lightbright is? Why is Lightbright even in the Crash game? Those kinds of things right there. It's something you would expect out of a Cartoon Network show or something like that. Like The Amazing World of Gumball or something, I don't know. Not in my Crash Bandicoot game. But yeah, for the most part, the humor is just really weird. Like at some points it gets it right, but then at others, like again, the plot of Mind Over Mutant, it's not necessary. I don't know why they try to go with it. It was too modernized. That's the thing. It's too modernized. There's the whole pop culture reference dealio. It's just weird. I don't know. The humor felt too forced. It didn't feel. They tried doing more dialogue-centered humor than visual-centered humor like the older games used to do. So the older, the visual gags are still there. Like don't get me wrong, but they're too far and few, I guess, in my opinion. Like, there's not a whole lot of wacky, funny, cartoony moments in this cartoonish game. It's trying to be more mature, but immature. Like, that sounds very oxymoron-ish, but, like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like, mature in terms of the content they tackle within the dialogue and, like, the references, but immature because it's cracking the jokes about those kinds of things and the fact that, there's references and like satires and all that. I think satire was one of the bigger words I wanted to mention. But they don't do it right. Like, these are things I've said, I think, before about Sonic Boom. I'm not sure if I actually said that about Sonic Boom, on the internet before, but a lot of that humor is why the game and the show don't really work, because they try to do things like that and show off domesticated life with Sonic Boom in the show, and that's not a good setting for Sonic, in my opinion. That kind of setting. The aesthetics, just to go off a little off topic, I'm so sorry, but the aesthetics of Sonic Boom, with the whole ancient world, was really cool. This domesticated stuff, why is it here? That's my point. Likewise, with Crash, why is this sitcom-ish humor here? It does not work with Crash. If Crash were a Cartoon Network show, like Sonic Boom, then you could get away. I still wouldn't recommend it, but you could get away with it. There if it was in a show. But this is a game where, in this line of games, they never did that. And they do it now. It doesn't work always. So that right there is my pet peeve with these games. It's humor, because that's the bigger thing for me of why I don't really care for these 2 games as Crash games. And I don't really want to be one of those people, because I've heard people say this as well, where to say, oh, forget it's Crash, and then it's okay to, get by. No, I mean, you can acknowledge that these are Crash games. As Crash games, I don't care for these ones as much as I do and cherish as I do the other ones. More prominently, the Naughty Dog games. It doesn't make me a fanboy, but the Naughty Dog games they had their shit right. Activision, with help from Activision, I guess, and like, you know, Radical and Sierra and all them, they didn't know how to do the humor. So that's kind of it, really. I don't want to ramble on for this is probably like a 20-minute video or something. I don't even know. There's a lot to cut out and a lot to, like, I guess, shorten. But let's have a civilized conversation in the comments. Let's discuss why these kinds of things here. These are the big 3 things that I always hear people bitch about, really. I mean, not even so much as complain, not even so much as say or state why they don't like. Outright, they just kind of bitch about it. So let's talk about why we don't like these aspects, how they could have done them differently, you know, and or even not so much at all in terms of the characters, because I know that every company has left their mark on the franchise, but the way they left their mark, and the fact that these are the last Crash games for like the last 7 or so years now, that's why, first off, Crash has slipped into obscurity a little bit, and second off, people have been left, now these fans have been left with like a bad taste in their mouth, because we haven't had a new Crash game since, and these are the last ones to fall back onto, you know, technically, and it didn't do as good, you know, critically, fan-wise, as the past ones did. So I can understand why, there's the dislike, why there's the hate and the animosity. I'm never gonna fucking understand. I think those were all just the trolls talking, but if that's the case, then damn, there's a lot of trolls out there. Like a lot for the Crash series, because whew. So that's my reasoning. Again, these games are okay. They're not great. I don't really know how far to say they're good that I would go to, but they're okay. And again, that's a little sad to say for the Crash series, because there are a lot of really good and great games in the series. Again, mostly those come down to the Naughty Dog games, but it's really weird. It's really weird. These games are okay. They're not that shit bad or whatever. I'm rambling. I'll see you guys later. I just need to end the video now. Let's chat in the comments and see you guys later. Take care.